Okay, hello everybody. This is Michael Newmans, and this is my project for um, the project management class. And my project was on the creation of the first Star Wars movie. Basically, just kind of everything that went into that. There was lots of ups and downs, um, and just kind of the overall view of the scope, time, and cost. Uh, what went right, what went wrong, the role of the project manager and sponsor, and then kind of an overall view of the successfulness of the project and the franchise as a whole. So, Star Wars is obviously it's one of the most successful film franchises of all time. Um, I mean, it has characters that we all know uh, in settings as well. Just, I mean, it's had the original trilogy. There's been a prequel trilogy, and there's actually another trilogy planned for the near future. Um, but this movie, the one that started it all, Star Wars, had very humble beginnings. It was almost never made. There was lots of roadblocks that went into making the movie. Uh, and creator and director George Lucas, who you've probably heard of, went through many ups and downs throughout the process of making the film. Okay, so the scope, uh, basically Lucas, he wanted the film to kick off a trilogy, and this was back in the 70s. So big epic sci-fi movies weren't necessarily the most uh, popular things that have proven themselves to make trilogies. So basically, he wanted to create an epic space saga that left people wanting to see the sequels that he already had planned while he was writing the first movie. His initial script was 6 hours long, and basically he knew that he had to split that into three different movies. And with the first Star Wars, he had to get people hooked so that they would want to see the next two. He had to put all the right people in the right places to make them the most successful that they could be during the project. And he actually appointed most of these people that were doing a lot of the work on the actual movie himself. The time for the movie, the shooting of the project began in '73, and the movie was originally to be released in December 1976. Um, he didn't just think of all this, in 1973, and then, go from there. He had uh, thoughts, and stuff down on paper way before this, and ideas running through his head about what he wanted. So, I mean, it was a longer process, but the official shooting began in '73. And right when they started shooting, the Tunisian rainstorm actually halted production. Uh, that put them behind 2 weeks right from the get-go. There were prop malfunctions and electrical malfunctions that delayed the shooting, delayed the filming process. But the studio still wanted Lucas to meet the shooting deadline. So, starting out 2 weeks behind, but then didn't get any leeway or any slack from from the studio. They still said that he had to make the deadline or the film gets scrapped. So Lucas made the necessary adjustments and got the filming back on track. Um, the post-production process brought a lot of headaches as well. The first cut was not what Lucas had in mind. He made lots of changes after this. Scenes and other visual elements had to be reshot and redone. Actors were brought back in to redo things. Basically, he knew what he wanted. He had a view of what he wanted this to be, and he wasn't going to stop until that was done. Um, Basically, all these post-production delays and reshoots resulted in the film being released in the summer of 1977. So it was about 6 months behind schedule from the original December '76 deadline. The budget for this movie, the original budget was 8.25 million. Um, Reshoots and delays increased the budget to 11 million, which really isn't that bad. I mean, maybe for the time it seemed like a bit more, but thinking about that today, it's not much. Uh, so they only came in about 3 million over budget. So I was just thinking how if can you imagine if this film hadn't been made due to going over budget just $3 million, just the impact that the film has had, and just how many legions of fans it has, and if this film had never gotten made, it's kind of a crazy thought to think about. Um, the Star Wars movies as a whole, just another note, have made 4.5 billion globally, and this doesn't count other things such as like toys, games, DVD sales, merchandise, and stuff like that. So the movies themselves, just this first one getting made was a pivotal step, and lucky for us all, it actually got made. So what went right during this process? The American Graffiti, which is a lesser known movie than obviously than Star Wars. That was George Lucas's first film, and it was a critical and commercial success. So that led him to getting a deal to make Star Wars. That kind of put his name out there and showed what he could do, and kind of gave him the clout to be able to make this movie. Casting, Lucas went for lesser known actors for this film, which I think was a good idea, because just sometimes if you have big stars and big names, then you got the egos to deal with, and you have their past projects that they've done that people associate them with. Going with lesser known actors who don't have any big things under their belt, I think was a good idea. And Lucas had the power to make the decisions he wanted with this film. There wasn't a lot of upper management types telling him, what you absolutely can't do, or do it this way as far as making the film. Like he had to meet his deadlines and stuff like that, but it wasn't like the studio necessarily had creative input. They had their say on some things, but he was the primary director, decision maker for the film. During the whole process, there was a lot more things that seemed like, at least that were recorded, that went wrong than what went right. But numerous studios, just starting from the beginning, numerous studios turned down the project before 20th Century Fox finally decided to give the film a go. And obviously that Tunisian rainstorm held up production. It was reported that there was an uninterested crew. They thought of the film as a children's film, and they didn't think it would be successful, so they didn't really take their jobs as seriously. That obviously could lead them not to get along with Lucas. They didn't get along very well, apparently. And with all the stress of making the film and getting it exactly how he wanted, Lucas was diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion from too much stress over making the film. And going back to the crew, not everyone in the crew was on the same creative page as Lucas. They weren't supporting him. They weren't behind him. And it was seems like just kind of a mess. They weren't, with his vision. So the role of the project manager, I would say, is George Lucas, and he basically coordinated people, props, sound, etc. throughout the production of the film. He wrote the film and directed it. He was the leader, told everyone where to go, what to do, how he wanted things for the duration of the project. The sponsor for the film would have to be the head of 20th Century Fox at the time, Alan Ladd Jr. He signed Lucas to make the film, and he signed him to make the film when a lot of people, like I said earlier, had passed on the film. So he was the benefactor behind there. He supported Lucas during the ups and downs of the project, kept the project alive despite budget and time overruns, which obviously turned out to be a good decision for 20th Century Fox. And the overall successfulness, well, the initial run of Star Wars globally raked in 440 million at the box office. And on an $11 million budget, the difference is $429 million, which by any time standards is a really really good return on your investment. Obviously, it spawned 2 sequels back in the 70s and 80s, and then obviously the prequel trilogy that came out the late 90s, early 2000s. And there's another trilogy that just recently got planned for the next couple years to come out. And obviously, you see Star Wars not just in movies, but video games, toys, T-shirts, just everywhere. It's what George Lucas is most well known for, and it's one of the highest-ranking film franchises of all time. So, the humble beginnings of the Star Wars trilogy and trilogies after that started with this movie, and it was an up and down process. But I would say that overall, things worked out for the best. And so that concludes my project, and thanks for listening.